Hello and welcome to the Creabea Knitting Podcast. Today I'm going to share 10 knitting patterns that I wish I had designed, but unfortunately I didn't. Hi, my name's Rebecca. I'm a knitter and knitting pattern designer, and I've been keeping this little note on my phone for ages every time I see a cool new pattern that I am incredibly jealous of and wish I'd thought up myself. And I thought today I would share those patterns. There are 10 of them. I'll put some pictures, I'll show you what they're like, and I just thought we could talk about them. I think they're beautiful patterns that honestly I'm pretty jealous that I didn't come up with. They, I think, are all or mostly garments, and some of these are pretty old patterns and some of these are quite new ones that have come out. Before I get into that, a couple of things. Firstly, I am wearing my KINTRA. This is one of my samples. It's in navy blue, and all the contrast colours are different colours of pure Gint. This is definitely my least worn KINTRA, and I wore it for knit night last night and I really liked it, so I thought I'd pull it out for today. And the reason I thought it'd be good today is I've got a tiny little announcement about pattern release. There's a pattern going live today, and what's especially exciting about it is it's my charity pattern of the year. So if you are a long time watcher, you'll know this is the 4th year in a row I'm making a donation to the Fistula Foundation. Fistula Foundation is an incredible organisation who perform surgical procedures to cure fistulas in women across the world, focused on areas that are particularly low income and or who don't have access to like ready medical procedures. It's really, it's such a good organisation. I've done a lot of research on it over the past 4 years, and what's really great is that for a fixed amount, which last I checked was about $660, they can perform this surgery for one woman, and that literally changes her life. And so it's really nice to be able to make a donation where you know that like if you donate this amount of money, you can help this many women. So as I said, it's the 4th year doing a charity release for them, and there are 3 patterns you can get. There are no discounts on the patterns, but there is a bundle, so if you want to buy all of them it will be slightly cheaper. Let me pull them up and show you. The first one, which is definitely the one I've used the most, oh, and this is why I remember KINTRA, because they're all in the KINTRA family. The first is the hot water bottle. This is literally warm right now and full because I'm using it every single day. I had to debubble it yesterday because I'm using it so much. Every one of the patterns will hold up to 24 colours, just like the KINTRA. So if you want to use an advent or like advent scraps, you could use it for this. However, this one, for example, I just used the main colour and 2 contrast colours, like a brown and a blue. And they're all DK weight, so they're all 20 stitch gauge. So I put chapstick on before I sat down because I've got a really dry patch on my lip and I just feel like my hair is getting stuck in it, so I keep like, so if that's what I'm doing, you know why. This was my first time making a hot water bottle cover and it was so much fun. It took me one evening, so this would be a really great gift knit. I am considering making more, but if I've got a lot on my needles right now, so that's not, I'm not desperately doing that. It would make such a good gift knit. And most of the test knitters made more than one, so that's always a sign of a good pattern. The second one is a little bit more out there, and that is a bag. And disclaimer, I only just added my drawstrings this morning and I've attached them wrong, but I'm fighting daylight hours to film right now, so I'm leaving them like they are. But please be prepared that if you follow the pattern they'll work out just fine. I'm just an idiot who did it wrong and ran out of time to fix it. This is the KINTRA bag. It is currently stuffed with probably too many balls of yarn, hence why it's looking a little funky. It is, yeah, see, if I just done I've done the drawstrings where like, they just pull all the way through. It's so stupid of me. Anyway, you work the bottom flat and then you pick up around the outside, the bottom's double knit, and then you work up the sides. It has standard sizing, which mirrors the standard sizing of my favourite project bag, which is the Mila bag from Strikkefeber. If you want to know how the drawstrings are actually meant to work, this is how the drawstrings are actually meant to work. I'm just an idiot. So they're the same dimensions, however, it's incredibly customizable. You cast on the number of stitches for the base, so if you wanted a smaller or a bigger bag, you'd cast on differently here, and you work it until it's as tall as you want. So a few testers have made different versions. I'll put another tester picture here of the same one, and the person who made that one, Amy, also made a giant one, which looks so cool. So that is the KINTRA bag. It's a really fun project, something a bit different, I feel. I feel like there are a lot of accessories out there. And I know 1x1 colour work is not like groundbreaking, so I wanted to make sure that I was offering something different by like not just socks or a hat. I am going a little basic with my scarf though. This is the KINTRA scarf. I just finished this sample last night. It might still be a little bit damp. This is my all one colour version, so let me hold it up in a way you can see. It is knit flat, which is colour work. There's a really fun way to practice some flat colour work if you've not done it before. Is that my neat end? I feel like the end that I start on is the neat end. I actually can't even tell. So it's definitely like Sophie's scarf shaped, and it comes in 3 sizes. I feel like at this point saying it's Sophie's scarf shaped is just like universal knitting language. And it is all in this 1x1 colour work with an I-cord either side. So this version is the medium one. It's definitely a little too damp to wear, but here we go. Medium size. Again, it fits 24 colours. This was my very first sample, and in the original sample I increased on both sides before realising that was useless and that doesn't lead to a wearable scarf. But I do still have the sample, and that one I use 4 colours for. And I currently have on loan to me from the wonderful Maggie, who is in a lot of my pattern pictures, her version to include in the photos. And this version has all, I think, 24 different colours in it. So it is just incredible. It's so beautiful. It's all in blue and all the colours change throughout. And this one is very large. It's so soft as well. I think there's alpaca in this. And the main colour is alpaca. Here we go. So those are my 3 KINTRA patterns. 100% of the proceeds until the end of the year will go to the Fistula Foundation. And I'm excited to see how big that donation can be. Because I only incorporated as a company last year, I think my donations in the first 2 years kind of went under their radar because I donated them through like Just Giving platforms as opposed to directly to them. And now as a business I donate right to them. And they've been in touch, and now they send me like their newsletter, and they've sent me some lovely letters over the past year. So it's been really nice to know that like it's also a little bit recognised, and yeah, I think it's very sweet. I'll put a link down below. It's available on my website and on my Ravelry. I cannot remember what I said the pricing would be, so I'm not going to say it now until I've worked it out for sure. But they're not particularly expensive, and yes, you can get all 3 for I think that they're £4 each, and you can get all 3 for £10. That is what I agreed on, because then there's an overall £2 discount, which is like what, $3.50 or something if you get all 3. Otherwise they're £4 each. Okay, we got through that. A little bit of, I mean, it's shameless self-promotion, but it doesn't feel so shameless because it's for a good cause. Those are 3 things that I designed. Let's talk about patterns. Oh, and I'm also working on a top secret project, by the way, but I feel it's a bit of a chattier episode today and less like holding things up. So I'm just gonna knit away on it whilst I'm chatting to you. You can see some wrong side stripes. So 10 patterns I wish I designed. These are patterns which have just caught my eye over the years. I think I'd wish I'd done that. Some of them I just think are like incredibly beautiful and interesting. Some of them I just think that they're like adding something to the community that wasn't there before, and some of them I'm just jealous because they were so unbelievably popular, and I wish I'd thought about that because that person designing them is making bank. I'm pretty sure included everything that is size inclusive. If they're not size inclusive, there are lots of patterns that I love that are not size inclusive, but I've chosen not to include them today because I think I'm kind of platforming designers here, and I want to platform ones who align with what I think. So let's start. I'm just going to go down the list in the order they're written. It's on my phone in front of me. The very first one is actually by a friend who was not a friend when she designed the pattern, but we've become friends since, and that is the Heirloom quilt cardigan. I will put a picture of it here. I feel like there has been a massive trend in the last like 3 to 4 years of quilt motifs. They are everywhere. We've seen them in like the Stella blanket, the frame by Andrea Mowry, there's a Natasha Hornby shawl, there's a Isolde Teague pair of mittens, so I feel like this like star pattern has really popped off. But I do think that the original one was the Heirloom quilt cardigan, and I just think it's beautiful. I think the colour combinations are great. Every time I see it in person I think, oh, that is stunning. And I am now, thanks to between the KINTRA and my Argyle pattern, the Lynx, which is like a colourwork pattern going into testing today in the newsletter, I'm now less scared of flat colour work than I was, but it's flat colour work and seaming, so like those are things that I personally find quite challenging or like not super enjoyable to knit, but but it's a beautiful piece. And I know that since then there's now a whole heirloom quilt. There's a hat, I think there's a vest, I don't know if that's out or in testing, and there's definitely a pair of gloves that are just being tested now. So it's basically the OG. I mean, I feel like knitting goes through eras, and I'm pretty sure that there will have been this in the past, but I feel like in the sort of era we're currently in, the last say 4 or 5 years of designing, that kind of kicked off the quilt motif. And it's beautiful, and I wish I'd thought of it. Okay, the second one I think is the oldest pattern on the list, and it is the cloud bow pattern. The cloud bow, well, it's a dress and a top, but the dress is the one I really love. It is by Reed Keys, and it was in the January edition of Pom Pom 2022. So like almost 4 years old. This was the first, and I think the only edition of Pom Pom that I purchased. I have another one, but that's the one that I was in, so they sent it to me. And I just thought this was the coolest thing ever. It is, I'll again put some pictures, it is a mohair dress. And I remember at the time just thinking that it was like an absolute feat of construction. I have not gone back and looked at it since becoming a designer. Is it still a feat of construction? I'm not sure. Is it more straightforward than I thought then? But I do think that you work it in an interesting way. It's worked in like panels, and then the sleeves are picked up, and it's sort of an empire waistline, and it looks very similar to a lot of dresses that I would enjoy wearing that are shop bought. So the fact that you could knit one is super impressive. The only thing that put me off is that it is of course all mohair, and so that the styling is very much like an extra cool layer over a dress, over a pair of jeans or something. However, I've completely forgotten her name. Cat Weaver. I have another friend who's called Catherine with a W name, and I almost just called her that name instead. Cat Weaver, who I'm not sure what her current handle is, but used to have a podcast that she shared a lot on, very sort of whimsical, elven fantasy aesthetic, and she made quite a few of these, and every single one was stunning. I think she had a few that were slightly denser and maybe like Holst yarn and mohair, and they look more like solid dresses. The gauge of this is 12 stitches, so I think she might have like modified that so that it was a tighter gauge, and it's just stunning. And every single time since I've seen that, I've wanted it, but I also have no desire to knit myself a dress. So like, I wish I designed it, but I also wish someone else had done it for me, because the thought of knitting a skirt that fits me makes me a little stressed. Okay, pattern number 3, I actually got the name of it wrong, I had to look it up, and it is the Coffee Date Sweater by Samantha Guerin. I feel like a lot of Samantha Guerin's designs I see, and I think that is really up my alley. And I think we have like, I don't think we have very similar aesthetics, but I think we have quite a lot of overlap, so I think there are things that both of us would design. And when she designs something in that little zone, I am very envious. I think the first pattern in this collection was the Coffee Run collar, which is like a dicky, is that, you know, like a, or like a, Petite Knit calls it a neck, but basically it's like a turtleneck or a thing with just this panel here, not a full sweater. And what I love about this, and why I'm especially jealous, is I feel like I always have a selection of designs in the back of my head which are not fully formed, and I kind of have like vague, like, oh, it might look a bit like this, or like I would consider including that. And one of the things I had in my head for a long time was this like varied rib, where I wanted to use different types of ribbing in one sweater. And this is similar. I think it's all the same ribbing. It's all, I think, 2x2. But it's like deep and then small and then deep and then small, and it's offset a little bit. I think it's a little like my staff and design. I think we came up with them at completely different points, and that's a raglan and this is a, so like I think that there are similarities there. But I just love this pattern, and I think it's my favourite gauge. I think it's a 20 stitch gauge, 19 stitches, DK, sorry, a 4-ply and a mohair. I love it. I love texture. Texture is my favourite thing. And so no surprises that this one is one that I wish I'd come up with. And it was just like, as much as it didn't sound all that similar to my brief, it looks exactly what I wanted in my head. I wanted in my head a garment with all this varied rib, and it would look like that. And then she released it and I was like, that is the idea I wanted. Like, she executed it so much better than what was in my head. And I think it's beautiful, and I wish I'd thought of it. Okay, the next pattern, I think we're on to number 4, is a pretty new pattern. It is Midsummer, and it is in the Art of the Sea, the newest, I think it's the newest book from Lina, which is inspired by the Moomins. I don't think I've ever watched or interacted with any Moomins whatsoever, so it does not hold a special place in my heart in the way I think it does for a lot of people. This pattern is by Maaike van Gijn. and it is stunning. It is a floral colourwork yoke, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember this correctly, the same designer, Maaike van Rijn, has an incredible colourwork yoke from a different publication where the yoke is knit in 4-ply and the body is knit in DK, so you get this incredible intricacy. I'll put that down below. I'm not able to find it right now because the way it links through is linking me to Lina and not to the designer, but I think she's just got an incredible unique take on colourwork yokes, and this was absolutely it for me. A lot of people were getting very excited by the book, the patterns included in that book, and I thought a lot of them were beautiful, but for me this one was just like next level. I think it's stunning and I want it. I want even more flowers. I want like 4 times as many flowers on the yoke. I want it all coloured in flowers, but I think it's so pretty and delicate and beautiful, and I'm really enjoying a little bit of colour work and not like all over colour work, and I feel like that was exactly that. You knit the shaping and then you knit a little bit of colour work and then you've got plain stock on it for the rest of it. I've got, I'm pretty sure, a Pinterest board pin called Floral, which again, a bit like my ribbing design, like I'm always sort of collecting concepts and ideas for something floral that I want to release one spring. And this probably is exactly what I wanted in my head, but better. Again, I think that's like the key point in a lot of this. Some of them are just people that I've seen it and I think it's styled really cool and I think it's really interesting. Some of it I think it's so unique and out there that like I just wish my brain worked that way. And then some of it is just, this is a kernel of an idea that I've been sort of keeping warm in the back burner of my brain, and you have completely delivered what I wanted and didn't even know I wanted it. And I just think that's such a cool feeling. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5. Number 5 is the Gloria vest by Adorable Knits. I like a lot of Adorable Knits too. Interestingly, also the patterns in English and Dutch, so I'm assuming also Dutch. I'm actually not sure what their non-handle. I don't know what their name is other than Adorable Knits. And the Gloria vest is a couple of, there's a round neck, or I think we're calling it like an O neck now. That's obviously the fashionable way to call it, but there's a V-neck and a round neck, and this is just textural heaven. I love texture, and this is exactly the kind of texture. I love like small texture, and this is 100% exactly what it is, and I wish I could get my hands on this stitch pattern that no one else had released and I could do a whole line in this, because I love the stitch pattern so much. I also think this pattern has some really interesting details. There's a really nice underarm rib detail. Now that is a very fun designer trick, which is if you're working in pattern all the way around, if you add ribbing down the side, you can break the pattern up, and it doesn't matter if you have to get like full stitch repeats in. I don't know if that's the case for this, it's a very small stitch pattern, so I think it would have fit either way. But I love seeing that little ribbing there. The V I'm looking at right now is beautiful, and it's got this stunning like line around the, sorry, I'm looking too much at my phone, I'll look more at the camera. It has a stunning detail around the arm cuffs and around the neckline that I just think pulls it together. It looks so considered, it looks so clean, and I'm a sucker for texture, and this is exactly the kind of texture I love. So yeah, I think a lot of Adorable Knits, again, I think a bit similar to Samantha Garrett, and I almost would put, I think the three of us, there are definitely more designers out there, in like a Venn diagram, and I think that the Gloria vest and the Coffee Run sweater fit in that bucket where like I think we're all enjoying the same thing around texture. And for me, maybe like the Alder is also in there. Patterns which texture, details, clean fit. I love it. I love it. And again, this is a 22 stitch gauge. Small quilted cross stitch is what it's described as. So yeah, I really like that. Number 6 is a bit of a different take, and I'm actually a little torn. This is probably the one which is like the lowest on my list, but for different reasons. And that is the Step by Step sweater by Florence Miller. This is a free top-down raglan pattern, which also comes with an incredibly well detailed video explaining how to knit. And I just think that the contribution that that's made to the knitting community is huge, and I just have a lot of respect for Florence for putting that out there. I think it is one of the most knit patterns on Ravelry in the last couple of years. I've recently been like branching out more onto TikTok, and a lot of new knitters on TikTok are reaching for that pattern first and are being recommended that pattern first. It's incredibly versatile, the fit is great, it's size inclusive, I think that's wonderful. The added detail, of course, is that last year AOC, the politician from the US, who's a very cool badass lady was learning to knit and knit the step-by-step sweater, and I'm just so jealous because I wish I designed something that some cool public figure had knit. Maybe I have, maybe they're knitting it in secret, probably not, but I think that's very cool. The one reason why I've like a little bit trepidatious about this one is I can only imagine the email pattern support, because when you pitch it at beginners, you have to describe things in a way for non-knitters to understand, and I think it wouldn't surprise me. I think there must be loads of comments under that video. I wouldn't be surprised if Florence is getting buckets of emails about this pattern. I know that in like popular help forums like our Reddit knitting, there's just question upon question upon question about the step-by-step sweater, and being pitched that beginner level I think would just be a real challenge. I think that one of the hardest parts of being dramatic, but like one of the parts I like the least about being a knitting pattern designer is like managing my inbox and making sure I reply to everyone. And ultimately writing patterns is describing what you've done in a way that makes sense to the most number of people, but people all understand and interpret things differently, and so every once in a while I'll have someone in my inbox who just does not grasp something, and it's something that like never came up in the test knit, no one else has ever emailed me about before. It's a pattern that's 4 years old and they just cannot wrap their head around one thing, and I always find that so stressful because I want to help that person get over the line and finish the garment or like make it more enjoyable for them, but we're having this like miscommunication, and I feel like that will be a more frequent thing with the step-by-step sweater because so many people are knitting it, for one, so the volume is way higher, and for two, the number of beginners tackling it is really high, and I think that would just be rough. So I don't know if this is so much jealous, sorry I don't know what I've done with my hair there, I don't know if I'm just jealous or if I don't know if there's envy. I mean there's envy that like a big name person knit it, that's always just, that's a bit of a bucket list thing, but I think I have a lot of respect for this one. I think that's where it is, just huge respect. And clearly, I think there are a lot of great beginner patterns out there. The fact it's free, the fact there's a YouTube video, and the fact it's been knit so many times and it's now just recommended as a great place to start, just it contributes so much, and I think it turns people into knitters, which that's pretty cool. Okay, my next pattern, I think we're on number 6 now, is also from a book. This is from a Lina magazine, and something I'm realising is, something I've realised on myself is that I think that working in a magazine or working with a book gives you two options. I don't know how to describe this. I feel like the margins are wider for what you can design and put in publication. I feel like there's more space for basics, particularly in like books with multiple patterns. I have a pattern coming into Lina's 52 weeks of simple sweaters, favourite sweaters, which comes out I think next spring. It is one of the most simple designs I've ever worked on. It is, I can't say much more about it. It is a raglan, it has some simple detailing. It was really fun to knit and I really enjoyed what it came out as. As an individual, I would feel apprehensive releasing that as an individual pattern because I think, is it all that different? Like, is there something out there? People could modify a pattern to get this. But in a book where you've got 52 sweaters, you want some clean classic basics in there. And so for me, the books offer an option to go more simple. And as someone, I'm working on a book right now, also with Lina, that will come out a year from now. That book has 18 patterns, and whilst I want to make sure every single thing is unique and it's something I've not seen out there and it's not like widely available, some of those things come down to the detailing rather than the overall construction. Like there is a stockinette raglan in that book with cool fun details, but I feel like the book or like that publishing world allows you to like include well done basics, which I otherwise would feel maybe a little bit insecure publishing as an independent pattern, because it's a bit like, well, what makes that unique? So that's one end of the scale with publication. The other end of the scale, which is where this is my third one from a publication, all fallen, is like the editorial side. You get paid a fixed rate for a magazine. Usually, in my experience, it's around €650 for like a garment. I think that's the case for both Pom Pom when they used to do things and Lina now, and that is a fixed rate, and you get the rights back to publish it as your own pattern, but it allows you to push the envelope a little bit and do things that are quite out there that might not be super commercially popular but are interesting, will photograph beautifully in like an editorial publication, and then if it becomes really well, like you'll know, okay, well that did really well, I'll probably start independently a year, 2 years, whatever later. And it kind of lets you like, yeah, experiment and do things that are a bit more out of your comfort zone. This is another one of those. So I think that's why I like the cloud bow. Like a knitted dress is pretty out there. I will say the Midsummer is not all that out there, but it's something I find really beautiful. And then this one is the Dazzler sweater. It is by, actually look at that, Lisa Lewis. Stunning. Stunning, 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 beautiful. I love it. I think it's so cool. I think an all over colourwork sweater is just like absolutely on my radar, and I feel like I creep closer to it with various patterns, and I've not landed anywhere near as close as this, and it is just stunning. I think it's so cool, and this one is pure envy. I wish I'd thought of this. I wish I owned this sweater. I wish I designed this sweater. I wish all of it. So yeah, stunning, very cool. I think it's been knit quite a lot of times, which is quite cool for a book. I feel like sometimes book patterns come out and they're stunning, but they don't get knit that often. And I just, yeah, it's called Dazzler and it is dazzling. It is beautiful. So hats off. That is probably my favourite one yet. Okay, I've only got 3 left. And the next one, I've actually just put one whole designer, but there are, I guess, 2 patterns in particular which I just think are stunning. The designer is Tety Lutzac. Tety is, I believe, a Ukrainian designer who lives in the Netherlands and does a bit of everything. Like, there's a lot of interesting colour work, there's a lot of really beautiful texture, and what I'm really impressed at with Tety is that I just feel like there's such cohesion across everything she does, and I think part of that is the colouring and like the photography and the colour grading in the picture samples, but also just I feel like she's got a very clear picture in her head of who she's designing for, and I think that's incredible, and her creativity is just off the charts. I think she's designing things people aren't seeing before. She's using interesting shapes, interesting ways of working, and I just think it's very, very cool. The first pattern, which I love, is the Meadow Quits. I think I'm mispronouncing that. I wonder if there is a phonetic on the page. Okay, it's 2 Ukrainian words, med meaning honey and kvit meaning flower. So honey flower, med kvits. Is there an O in the middle? Did I make that up? Yeah, meadow quit. I'll put a picture. Stunning. I believe it's 2 patterns. There's like a vest and there's a sleeved version. I think I like the sleeved version most, but I could also imagine the vest with like a big billowy blouse underneath being beautiful. It just combines colour work, and the colour work is stunning. The cables are stunning. The construction is so interesting, like knitting a cable panel and then picking up colour work around it and increasing it a bit like a raglan. It's just so interesting, and it is not shop bought. Like, it's not something you'd see in a shop, but it also just looks really visually engaging, and I think the colours she's chosen are stunning, like every time. And I think with Tety, my jealousy or my envy, what was up? Apparently jealousy is like a person and envy is an item, but I don't know if that's true or just nonsense I heard on TikTok. Who really knows? And so my reason why I'm so envious of Tety is I just feel like she has such a unique perspective and such a creative way of looking at things that just feels completely out there. And I feel like I colour within the lines, and I feel like Tety colours completely outside the lines and ends up with a beautiful piece at the end, and I'm just so impressed with that. The second pattern I have to look up because it's actually, I don't believe, live yet. I will say I don't love the whole thing, but I love the certain detail that's in it. It is the, I don't know how to pronounce this, tapetum, Tapetum sweater, inspired by crocheted rugs. It's currently in testing, and it's got sort of colour work all down the body, which I'm not such a huge fan of, but this picture, when I tell you, I like gasped when I saw it. I think it is stunning. I think it is so beautiful. I think it's colour work, like pearl bump colour work, but I also love when you look at it and you're like, I'm not actually sure what I'm seeing right now. Like, I don't really know what that is, and I think that's just like, and again, stunning combination of colours. So I love pretty much everything that Tety does, and this is absolutely no exception to that rule. And I think I might have one scarf pattern that I bought with the intention of like, I'm going to knit another designer's pattern once a year. That was a Tety pattern. I've still never done it. So I think if I was right now to pick, if someone said to me like, pick a designer and pick any one of their patterns and knit that instead of knitting your own patterns, I think I'd have a hard time picking between Tety's patterns because they just all look beautiful. Okay, second to last, and I will say that this one is also a designer who I like a lot of their patterns, and again I think there was some overlap in the sort of things that we enjoy. I think that's probably diverged more in the last few years, but I think before I was designing, this is a designer I was pulled to a lot, and that is Sari Nordland. Again, texture, like beautiful texture, and I feel like texture, I mean cables and lace are really her thing, and so the pattern that I'm the most envious of is the Coutar. And I will say part of this is because my friend Jenny, who's in a lot of pattern photos, so you would undoubtedly recognise her face if you don't know my patterns, knit a beautiful grey version that she wears quite often, and every time I see her wear that sweater I'm like, oh, it's so nice. It just looks so cool. And I think there are a few other ones. I think she's got like the Foxberry again, which is like a very interesting yoke with texture. It's just beautiful, and I don't know if it's because I've not done very much lace knitting or if I'm just not very good at it. I just don't see the patterns in the same way. I know that a lot of the patterns are from like Japanese stitch dictionaries and things. I think that a lot of that like very intricate cables and lace are pulled from resources like that. But my brain just does not work in a way where those cables and lace jump out to me. I think there are designers out there who are really being very inventive with starting with stitches and seeing what happens on the needles. I am not that person. I don't work well like that. And I feel like the sort of ornate, intricate detail that comes in a lot of Sari's patterns is just beautiful. And if I have to think of the one that like most captures that to me, it is the Coutar. And I feel like I can say that one properly because every time I ask Jenny what is that one, she says, oh, it's the Coutar. And I love it every single time. And I feel like every time she wears it to knit night, someone tells her how nice it is. So I know it's not just me that loves that pattern. Okay, and last but not least is kind of the motivation behind finally making this video. And that is because I'm currently like a little sick with envy that I didn't think of the sailor slippers first. And I think it's such an interesting take on like, I know that felted slippers are not like knitting a felted slipper, well, knitting a slipper and putting it in the machine is not a new thing. I remember quite a few moons ago, Inga is who I meant from Knitting Traditions. I remember that she like verbally translated a Norwegian pattern for felted slippers on like episode 16 or something of her podcast. Because everyone was asking about them so much. So I know that felted slippers aren't new, but I think these are just like the colour combinations and the time of year it's been released, they make for such a great gift knit. They're so cool, and I just know she's made absolute bank. She's made so much money from those patterns. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I'd thought of it. I wish I thought of it. I wish I released it. I wish I made them as cool. I think all of her samples are beautiful. And I'm just, yeah, it's one of those ones where I think like, oh, if only I'd thought of that, I wouldn't have to stress about pattern sales for a long time, because it would have just taken off and they'll be popular every single year. Like they'll have a high point now over Christmas, and I think they're still in Ravelry #1 spot despite being released like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I think they will stay there for a while. And I think people will knit them for Christmas gifts, and I think next year people will knit them for Christmas gifts. And once a pattern gets to that level of virality, they become recommended so often, and then you just see so many people knitting them that then you knit them. So many reasons. So that one, I will say, like, I think they're cool, I think they're fun. I'm mostly jealous because of how popular they are. And that might make me very petty, but it is true. So there we are. Those are the 10 patterns that I wish I designed. I've been keeping this list for so long, it's kind of fun to share them. I think at least over a year that note has been on my phone, and every time something new comes out, I like add it to the list. And I was waiting till I got till 10, and I guess the Midsummer and the Sailor Slippers have tipped me over the edge. So yeah, I wish I'd done it. If you want to know any of them, I'll put links for all of them to Ravelry down below. The designers might have their own website, so if you want to go elsewhere looking for them, you're very welcome to. And I'm curious if you knit any of these. How was the experience? Did you enjoy it? Part of me wants you to tell me that you knit one and it was really hard to knit, just so that I feel slightly validated, but again, that's very petty of me. So maybe I should not do that. And yeah, thank you for joining me. It's a bit of a shorter video to usual, but I'm sure that's probably a bit of a welcome reprieve from my usual nonsense. And as I said, the KINTRA accessories are all now live on Ravelry and my website. All the money raised until the end of the year, so 100% of proceeds will go to the Fistula Foundation, which is such a good organisation doing amazing things. I'm happy to work with them for a 3rd year in a row, and it's my last big pattern release of the year. So after this, we're kind of on easy breezy mode until January, never mind the 18 boot patterns I'm knitting. So thank you for joining me, and I'll probably be back in a couple of weeks with something different. Maybe a podcast, because I am working up some fun things right now. And until then, happy knitting. Bye!